Today we're going to be learning how to knit a basic 10 by 10 inch square, how to both start it and how to finish it. So in order to do this, you're going to need 2 pairs of knitting needles. I have 2, they're different lengths and different colors, but they're both size 8, as you can tell by the base of it. So they'll both work. I'm doing this primarily for the different colors to help you. You'll also need a yarn ball. I chose a multicolored yarn so you can see the different stitches and they're easier to pick out. You will also need a pair of scissors for the very end. So the first thing we're going to do is you're going to need your ball of yarn. So as we're using the ball, we're going to refer to 2 ends. So the end that has just a little nub, we're going to call the tail. And the end with the ball, we're going to call the ball. So what we need to do is we need to make a slip stitch. So for us, it's very important that you make sure you have a long enough tail. If your tail isn't long enough, your project won't be long enough. But where this is only 10 stitches, we don't need a really long tail. So I'll probably grab around here in the green, and that'll give me a long enough tail. So all you need to do is take your yarn and your hand. You're going to wrap it around your hand, and then when you get to the front, you're going to cross them. And you want the tail on top. So the tail goes over, and then you're going to take your 2 fingers, and you're going to grab the ball yarn on the other side of the cross. And then as you pull, the circle will come off your hand, and you will pull into a slip knot. And what happens with a slip knot is if you pull the tail, it gets bigger. But if you pull the base or the ball, it's going to get smaller. So we're going to go ahead and grab our needle. We're going to use the yellow one for right now. Put it through the circle and then pull the ball to make it nice and snug. So our next step is you're just going to take your tail. You're just going to throw it to the side for right now because we don't need them at the moment. And I'm going to teach you how to put it on to start your stitches. So you're going to take your hand and you're going to wrap your ball yarn clockwise around your pinky starting at the top, and then same thing with your pointer finger. So your hand should look like this. Then with your needle, you're going to poke it up from the base, up through that circle on your pointer finger, and then you're going to grab your tail. And with your tail, you're going to wrap it around the back to the front, and then I like to hold it tight against my needle so that I don't lose it. Then with your needle, you're going to poke it down through the hole, back the way you came, and then you're going to throw that circle off the top of your hand. And that's going to give you your first stitch. So we actually have 2 because your slip stitch also counts as 1, and then we have the one we just did. So I'm going to do this a couple more times to help you out. So you're going to take your pinky, clockwise starting at the top, same thing with your pointer finger. Take your needle up from the bottom, grab your tail, around your needle, hold it tight, and then poke your needle back through that circle, and then throw it off your finger. This is really important to remember because in the next stage when we're actually throwing on knitting with our second needle, that is the exact motion you'll be doing, but it will be smaller. So once again, take your needle, wrap it around your pinky, around your index finger, from the base to the top, grab your tail, around through the top, poke it down through that circle once again, and then pull it tight. So we now have 4 stitches. I'm going to go ahead and do the next 6. With this, as you get better, you won't drop your pinky every time and you'll be able to keep it. It'll save you a little bit more time. For the sake of this instruction, I'm going to do an extra stitch so that you can see what to do if it happens if you accidentally do too many because you lose count or you weren't paying attention. We're going to find out what you do then. And I'm not actually counting my stitches right now, so we'll see how close I am. So we're just going to throw that last one off. So when I count the stitches, I just hold my needle like this and I just grab the circles. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. So I have 1 too many. So what I do is I shift it closer to the end. So I'm close and I grab my thumb and I hold the stitch I don't want to lose. So just the one I'm trying to get off, and I just push them off. And with that, it'll untangle, there's no knots, and you're all good. Now we don't need the tail anymore, so what I like to do is I just tie them into a simple knot. Because if you accidentally lose your tail, you run out of yarn and then you're stuck where you are. So that just gets rid of it, so we don't have to worry. And then you switch it so that your one with your stitches is in your left hand. And then you're going to pick up your right hand needle, in this case mine's blue, and we're going to start casting on. So like just how you were doing with your finger, you're going to take your needle and you're going to poke it next to your needle down by the ridges, which each ridge is a knot. And you're going to poke it between the 2 stitches and you're going to go up through that hole. So what you're doing is you're creating a space where your needles are touching and there's no yarn between them. And you're going to take your ball, and you want to wrap around behind the blue one, and then you want to go between your two needles. So there should now be a red thread. And then with my blue one, I'm going to poke it down, and I want to hold it tight, and we're going to go back through that original stitch that we did, just like we did when we were hand casting. And then you're going to throw that stitch off the top. So we should still have 10 stitches. So I have 1 here, and then I still have 9 over here. So we're doing good. So we're just going to repeat the same process. You will also get to the point where you'll have a gap between your two needles, just like this. Sorry, my hands got a little close. But don't worry about that. That is perfectly normal, and don't let it bother you. So we're going to do the same thing again. So between the 2 stitches, up through the bottom, making sure that there's no threads between our needles, grabbing our ball, wrapping it around the back, down through the middle. We're going to do the same thing where we just go down, poke your needle through that hole, slide it on a little bit so you don't lose it, and then you're going to throw that green one off the top. And now you have 2 stitches here and 8 stitches on your other one. And we're going to repeat it one more time. So take your needle, put it flush against your other needle, poke it up through the bottom in your circle, grab your red thread, go around, down between the middle, and then we're going to poke our blue needle through that green thread so it's underneath, push them on a little bit, and then we're going to throw that green thread off. We're going to do it one more time, and then we'll go to the end. So take your blue needle, you are going to put it flush against your yellow one, poke your needle through the hole so there's nothing between them, take your red thread, wrap it around the blue between your 2 needles, take your blue and push it through that yellow, and then throw that yellow stitch off. So all you're doing is you're moving the circles essentially from one needle to your next needle. And we're just going to do the next couple really fast so that we can see what the next step is. So when you get to the end, it's kind of the same as what happened in your previous one. All your stitches should be on your one needle. In this case, it's my blue needle. And I'm just going to take that blue needle and I'm going to switch it over to my left hand, and then I'll have my yellow one back in this one. So I'm going to go ahead and then you just do the same stitches. I'm going to do a couple, and then I'm going to show you what happens if you accidentally drop a stitch and then how you handle that. So we'll just go ahead and do another one right here. So one thing that happens a lot is when you poke it through and you wrap it around, oops, I had 2 double threads there, wrap it around, is sometimes we accidentally, because see how it's really tight, we'll accidentally drop it. And all my threads, all of them have fallen off my needle. So what I do is I take my yellow needle and I carefully poke through all the red circles. And in doing that, I've gained my needles back and I haven't lost one. Another common mistake is that this purple one will actually end up on this needle. That one's a little harder to catch. With the multicolored, it's pretty easy because I know that color shouldn't be there. But with other yarns, you have to really be careful and you have to really look to make sure that you have the right one. So we're going to go ahead and pass it. That's one way that people sometimes will gain a stitch. And we're just going to continue this for a little bit. We're on row number 2 right now, and we're going to go ahead and do 8 more rows to get us up to number 10. And I'm going to fast forward for a little bit so that we can see what we do when we have our full. Okay, so I went ahead and did the whole 10 rows. And so my cube, my little box, looks like this. And so I folded him over to check just to make sure. And so he makes a perfect little triangle. So I'm at the point where I'm ready to start tying off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure the blue, so the one that has my little batting, is going to be in my left hand. And I'm going to take my right one. And so what we're going to do is it's just like a basic stitch. All we're going to do is we're just tying it off. So we're going to take our needle, go through the bottom, up through the top, making sure there's no thread between. Grabbing that ball, going around the yellow, down between, poking our yellow one through, and then you're going to throw it off. So that's one. We need to have 2 stitches before we can start throwing them off. So we're going to go ahead and do it again. So go down from the bottom, up through the top, around your needle, down through the middle, and then we're going to poke him through and throw that needle off. So now what you're going to do is you need to get this green stitch off. So there's 2 ways you can do that. You can grab it with your hand. We'll do this way first, and you're going to pull it over, but you want to make sure you don't lose that blue stitch, and you just throw that green one off. And we're just going to do the same thing again because you can't cast off without 2. So we're going to throw another stitch on. The other way you can do it is if you can grab it with your needle. So your needle is in the closest one to your right hand, so that light blue one. And you're going to pull it closer, careful not to lose that purple one, and throw it off. So now you've done 2. And you're just going to do this for the entire length of your thing. You're just going to keep casting 2 stitches on. And then once you have those 2, you're going to cast that one off. Whoops, something's not quite right, so we'll go back. I think I had the bottom yarn. So grab it, cast it off. You're just going to do this for the entire length. What this is doing is it's finishing your seam. So it's just doing a top seam, and it'll look very much like your bottom seam. So you just do a basic stitch, grab your bottom, pull them off, and you just keep going. So this is a really small little square, and it's just as an example to show how to both start and finish a knit project. So right now I'm having a problem because my fingers are a little tight because I'm doing it with my finger again. There we go. And you'll find which way fits best for you. Some people really like using their needle to do it, and some people really like using their fingers. For me, I kind of vary between the two. So this is actually my last stitch. Apparently I grabbed the back of the blue one. So we're going to pull it off. And so now I only have 1 stitch left on my needle. So what you're going to do is at this point is you're going to grab your scissors that we've been keeping this entire time, and I'm going to cut my ball of yarn. I like to keep it give a good distance for this one because it's so small. I just did pretty short. Where is it? There it is. And what you're going to do is you're going to pull this slightly to make your hole bigger. Take your tail and you're going to poke it through the way it came, and then you're just going to pull it tight. And all that's doing is tying a knot so that it doesn't come undone, and this one's undone too. And now you have your little 10 by 10 square that you can do whatever you want with. And that is how you end a knit project.